Good morning. My name's Ray. I'm with Team S.T.E.A.M. and this morning we're taking the very first steps down the path of our 2024 gardening season. Okay, here's our little bitty indoor greenhouses. We have some mushrooms growing in this one, and in this one we have all of our little plants. We have plants like hot peppers, regular peppers, eggplants. We have a lot of plants that have been started here. And here is what this greenhouse looks like, about 15 hours a day, maybe 18 hours a day. You see we've got grow lights just mounted up in here. And here's the greenhouse before we get started cleaning it out this year. We'll go ahead and go inside and have a look at the chaos. Here's the leftovers from some of last year's plants. These work great. These milk carton little mini greenhouses work great for out in the yard. You can close these at night. They can still get air through the ends there. They don't tend to freeze or have as much effect from the cold. Here's a bunch of seeds. There's a bunch of seeds. There's a bunch of seeds. All categorized and organized. This is just wood stove pellets. I wanted to put them up here just so they're not on the floor. We'll get them better organized. That's the pellet stove that we use to keep this place warm at night. And as you can see, devoid of any plants at the moment, but we have all kinds of places to put plants. We have all kinds of containers of different sizes to put plants, and then of course shelf space everywhere. And then we've got a couple fans so we can harden the plants off properly in here. There's grow lights up under here so we can grow plants down here. There's some homemade kind of mini beds that we put plants in. And then up under here, like I said, there's grow lights on both sides. And so today, my wife and my oldest daughter are going to be in here organizing this and getting some stuff transplanted and getting it set on the shelves. And today I'm over at the corner of our property because we're getting ready to take the first of many steps involved with turning this corner of the property into another garden. Now, as you see, all around me, clear back to the fence, this whole corner all the way to this wall, this whole corner, it's a good sized little chunk of land. We already have two gardens on the property, two big gardens on the property. One's a production garden and one is a kind of a food forest, loaded with fruit trees, loaded with berry bushes, loaded with all sorts of plants, all sorts of perennials, annuals that we plant every year. There's a bunch of plants in both gardens, and one of them, like I said, is a full-on production garden. This is going to be another full-on production garden. And where you see that camper, that's going to be out of here. I'm going to be giving it away actually on the marketplace. I'm going to move this boom truck, we're moving this little camper, we're moving everything out of here, and we're going to turn this entire corner into a production garden. One of the first things we'll do is we'll get them unloaded and start building some beds with them. The first thing we got to do, however, is get this whole corner of the yard cleaned out. As you can see here, I've got a number of these beds built with landscaping timbers and Peterbilt fenders from 379s, and I've got a lot of them. And then over here I've got some perfectly round beds built from 379 fenders. Over there I've got yard furniture I built out of trampoline poles and pallets. These are for some of our bushes, and a lot of our perennial and annual flowers will go in here. And these are the beds that I'm getting ready to build in the other garden. A bunch of these 4x8 beds, and as you can see, I have a bunch of them in this garden. And I'm going to do at least that many in the new garden. Got some small beds built from Peterbilt fenders. They just go on either side of this gate. These are built from all used materials. These are for cold crops, so we can put them in here in the early spring and cover them up at night. They can stay out here, and in the meantime they just store some of our planting material. And then over here is a different style of Peterbilt fender bed. And I've got a number of these up in the other garden. And here's a TARDIS that we built years ago. I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, at least 4 years ago. And what it does, this is a power supply that I had put on the property years ago when there used to be a trailer house that sat right here. We tore down that trailer house. We used all the materials out of the trailer house to build the greenhouse and that shop addition that you see over there. All of that got built from those materials out of that trailer house that we tore down. Now that it's not here, but the power supply still is, and the water supply still is, which is now the water supply for the garden, I went ahead and built this TARDIS around this because this is where our internet comes into the property as well, and electricity comes in right here. So we run anything we need to from this electric, and I didn't want it just sticking out here looking awkward. So I designed this TARDIS and had my son-in-law Kittrick build it because I was busy doing other projects. And then I'm the one that painted it and got it all looking similar to how the TARDIS actually looks. It's got two of these sets of double doors. One set right here and another set right here, so you can access it from two different sides. And here's a closer look at that yard furniture I built out of pallets and trampoline poles a couple years ago. It just sits out here year round, so it's seen nothing but full weather. These are built from trampoline poles. Some of these details on this one are trampoline poles, but the main frame is out of a 59 International pickup that I completely restored years ago, and I kept the seat frame, and that's what I built this with. There's old Kevin. You can see there's the original seat frame, and then of course the trampoline poles, you can see the holes in them from when they used to hold springs. Same with here, from when they used to hold springs. And the rest are just made from old pallets, thick pallets that were meant to initially haul sandblasting sand. So they're sturdy, they'll last forever. Here's a couple more of these Peterbilt beds. Like I said, I have a number of them. There's my yard spider that I built out of trampoline poles, and then also the very first sandblaster that I ever had, and I ran that sandblaster for well over a decade. And then this part right here was the big lip, the big bowl this used to pour the sand in. I cut it all in pieces in a way that I could go ahead and close the pieces up and then weld them all together and then put a fiberglass cap on it. So the initial bowl that holds the sand is still on there, but it's just been turned into the head of this spider. And this spider has been here for 4 or 5 years now in this spot. And here's this spider from the outside. Again, that's my original sandblasting part. It's like a 1960s model Lindsay sandblaster, along with some trampoline poles. And then just some stainless off of trucks for its pinchers. And the end of its, and the little daggers at the end of its legs. Okay, now it's been a few days out here in the garden location, and I called a guy who sells topsoil or manure or a 50-50 blend of both, and it's aged manure. And I had him do me 2 dump truck loads at about 14 tons a load. So this is about 28 tons here of a 50-50 blend of topsoil and aged manure. And when he showed up here, he showed up in a Peterbilt 379 with a short hood on it. And it was a black truck, and the hood was beat all to heck, and so were the fenders. And I just happened to have a hood sitting here in the yards that was in great shape off of 379. That was the short hood, and it was already black, and the fenders on it weren't in good shape at all, but I had a spare set of fenders that were in excellent shape. So I called the guy that, because he had his driver drop it off. So I called him and said, hey, you want to do some trading? And he goes, for what? And I told him, for this hood. You want a black hood for your Peterbilt and some fenders to go with it? And he said, heck yeah. So we traded these 2 loads of dirt at $400 a load for that spare hood I had sitting around that I wasn't going to do anything with anyway. And so I got this dirt for free. Now, it's been a few weeks since I've shown you the inside of the greenhouse. I know this is all going to be in the same video, but it's been a couple weeks since we've been in here. And since then, Jen and my daughter Ash have done a bunch of planting. So we'll have a look here at what they've done. We can see some of this stuff is coming up. Some of it's coming up even more. And it's coming up really consistently. We've got a bunch of plants coming up. Oh look, there's Busy. This is Busy Izzy, and she's always doing something, as you can see. Her and her entire litter of 5 cats just showed up here one day because we live just on the outskirts of town, and around once a year, around the fall of the year, people abandon their entire litters out here on the outside of town because people suck. And they just all came walking up one day when they were all kittens. That was 6, 7 years ago. But anyway. Habis. And it won't be long. We'll be adding a bunch of plants to these because we haven't taken any of them out of the greenhouse that's in the house yet. And here's how all these are doing. You're just looking at the lights that we have in here. That's why everything looks pink. But here's how all of our indoor greenhouse plants are coming along. And here they are without the green light, or without the growing lights on them. And as you can see, for reference, with my hand in there, they're all pretty darn tall and they look really good. They're not getting all leggy. They have good solid stalks on them. They're going to transplant really well. Okay, so I got that blue sleeper picked up out of the corner of the yard, put over here. It's going to be on this side of the fence. The fence is going to run right here, just on that side of that sleeper, and all of this area is all going to be garden, with the exception of that along the fence where I have just extra stuff stored. That'll be there'll be a big walking space around it, and that will be the only part of it that's not going to really involve garden. But the rest of this is all going to be garden. And here I've got my piles of timbers, got my station set up here with just a couple sawhorses, a slightly taller sawhorse, so when I set my boards, my timbers on that end, they're at about the right height, so we can just start cutting off these corners. I had to put this at a 45-degree angle, and we'll be cutting these corners, and we'll be building beds, and then we'll go to this pile. It's about 28 tons of topsoil and manure mixed, and we'll shovel that into a wheelbarrow and start filling the beds as I'm building them. And now I've got these 4 beds built. We're going to build 6 more just like them. Now, for now, we're just going to fill these guys up with dirt and get some potatoes planted in them. And here's the first 6 beds all finished. 12 by 12. An octagon bed that's roughly 8-9 feet across. All filled with dirt. This one's going to be corn. Not 100% sure what this one's going to be in the first year. And these 4, which are now finished up completely and full of dirt, are going to be, all 4 of these are going to be potato beds. We're going to do 6 more just like it. They're going to be predominantly tomato beds. Okay, and here I've got 6 more beds built. There's 2. There's a 3rd. There's a 4th. None of them are filled yet. Here's the other 2. I've got 6 more beds built. And that's all the beds that I'm going to be building back here. There's going to be more beds built, but they're not going to be ones that my wife and I are using. These are the ones we're using. They're all built. We're getting ready to fill them. And now we've got these Peterbilt beds built. These are just 4-foot landscaping timbers, drywall screws, and that's all you need. These are just 4-foot beds. We have plenty of 8-foot beds as well, but this is what my daughter wanted, and they're going to go right up here in the corner of the yard. But there's 3 of them made out of old Peterbilt 379 fenders. And with the landscaping timbers that I had left over, I went ahead and built an 11th rectangular bed back here. So now instead of 10, there's 11 of these style of bed back here, and then of course the big one, and then of course the octagon. So that's 13 beds total back here. We're going to fill that with dirt here momentarily. And then with the last few boards, and these were the most bent and twisted up timbers. They weren't good for much else. I cut them into 2-foot sections and made this octagon bed. And this is a whole different section of the garden altogether, as you can see by the tires. Different style of Peterbilt bed. These are using quarter fenders, or fenders that have been cut in half, I guess you could say. And 4-foot timbers in between. Put them at about 7 foot in the back. got a number of them here. And then we got this whole big row. We've got a number of rows, actually. A number of locations. 4, I think, on the property of tire beds. This is one of them. And right here in this corner, we've had trouble in the last few years growing anything real productive here over here in this corner. So now we're just going to put in a big, probably strawberry bed. And now it's the time of year where we're going to be putting in some additional fruit trees and bushes. It's early spring, it's early May. And I have a video called Let's Plant Some Fruit Trees. So if you look that video up, you'll see the exact details on how we go about planting fruit trees. But for this video, I'm just going to show you the ones we're planning on planting. And so here we've got a couple peach trees, a couple apricot trees, and the ones here in front are all pear trees, and then a couple raspberry bushes. That's what's going in the selected gardens. We have an upper garden, a lower garden, and then we have another garden that you just watched us build. And these are going to go in dispersed in among all 3 of those gardens. And here we have a big sloppy looking hole. And I didn't dig this hole for this pear tree. This hole got dug because I dug around the entire root system of a big aronia berry bush. And if you've ever had those, they are bitter and terrible. Birds don't even like them. They're prolific and they're a superfood, but they're terrible. They're too terrible to even eat. So, and this bush was taking up some prime real estate and doing very well. I mean, the thing was big, had 50 pounds of berries on it every year, but we don't eat the berries. So I dug it out of here just a few minutes ago. I'm going to make this hole better suited for this pear tree, and that's where this pear tree is going to go. Right here next to this apple tree, we have a swing that my oldest daughter and I dug out of the city dump. It was bent, mangled, and broken and stuck in the city dump, and it had a bunch of old ratty cushions on it. We took the cushions off, put pallet wood on it, did some welding where we needed to, straightened up the metal where we needed to, sanded it down and painted it, and it's been sitting in our garden for almost 5 years now. Does a wonderful job. Now that that apricot's in place, we're going to take this apricot, different breed called Moore Park, and we're going to put it right here next to this rose bush that I intend to prune down here a little bit. Now here we are in the lower garden, and this is where this Moonglow pear is going to go, right where this old peach tree was that died this last winter. It got -32 last winter and it killed a few things, and this peach tree was one of them. So we got it out of there, and now we're putting in this Moonglow pear. And this Bartlett pear is going to go right here in the yard. There's a whole row of trees here, a whole row of fruit trees, all the way down from one side of the fence to the other. This one is a Thunderchild crab apple, and then a frostbite apple right here. And this Bartlett pear is going to go right between them. And as you can see, we have a captive audience here on the yard furniture. We have Kevin, or shop foreman Kevin, as he's commonly called. And we have Ullman. Hey, Ullman. One that we got here, just one of many that we got from the local cat rescue here just a few months ago. And here's this veteran peach, all dug in, ready to go. And here's this Saturn donut peach, all dug in, ready to go. All right, now at this point I'm going to start building the fence to fence off this garden, because we've got a fence around 3 sides of it. We need a fence across the front because there's no sense in transplanting anything into it until we can actually keep the deer out. So that's the very next step. And for this step, I'm going to need some fence posts, of which I only have 2 of them laid out right now, but I have plenty for this particular job. A gate. This is one of the first gates I ever built, and it was built over a decade ago. And I just keep reusing it for different things, and I'll be reusing it for this fence. Some welded wire fencing. The 5-foot section of fence is what I'm going to be using here to go across the front of this garden for this particular project. These 2 4-footers are for a different project that I'll be showing you later. Okay, I've got the fence all done. It's all installed. It's all tied to the posts, tied to the end of the house there, tied to the fence on the other side there. Got the gate all done. I swapped the hinges over to the other side so it would open the same way that all the other gates do. Just got some scrap wood, like some pallet wood, and made a latch. This is how I made all my latches, just with a few simple components. Put a stopper at the bottom so it stops on the gate, or stops on the fence, and holds itself closed. It's nice and wide. You can fit a wheelbarrow through it, which I've already put to the test since some of these beds that we filled up here the other day, we've got quite a bit of rain and they settled, and so I went ahead and topped off quite a few of them here just a few minutes ago. And now we're ready for the next step, which is to put a 2-foot riser on the top of this entire fence that runs the entire property all the way around. All right, now at this point, I've got my air hoses strung out from clear across the property where the shop is. Got my gun all ready to go. Got my paint all ready. Now I'm gonna go ahead and paint these 3 beds before we begin filling them. All right, we got that done. Now all that's left is to shoot this fence, these 2 sides of the fence, to make them the same color as this fence. This fence runs the entire property line, and I have more of this paint, and we're gonna shoot this fence. It's a different color brown, and that one spot's missing paint altogether because there was a cedar tree hugged up to it really tight that I cut down here last year, and so now there's that bare spot in the fence. We couldn't paint it because that tree was all over it, but now it's not. And then we replaced a section of fence over there, and you can see it's not brown either. Neither of the colors are the same color as brown as this other fence over here anyway, so I'm going to paint that fence and that fence the same color as this fence. All right, now at this point I've got my fence extenders up all the way around the garden fence and the rest of the property, in fact, but especially around the garden fence. We've got all of these beds painted. They're all filled. There's plants growing in them now. I'll be getting rid of that stuff here in the next week. Within the next week, all that'll be gone. The fence all got painted the same color. We've got all the beds. Most of the beds have been seeded. Some of them already have plants growing. Got the fence to keep the deer out built. Gates on it. Everything's ready to go. This brand new garden is now officially ready to go for the summer of 2024. And now I've got a couple of carports, 20 by 20 carports that we're going to be assembling and putting up just in front of the garden. All right, well, now I can finally take a load off for a minute now that we finally have everything ready to go for the 2024 garden season to get fully underway. Hey, if you like this video, you should take the time to hit the like button. It's going to help me grow my channel. And if you want to see more of what goes on around here, you should check me out at Flash Industrial Painting at Facebook. And if you want to see more videos like this, or domestic auto body, or truck auto body, or any of the many things that we do around here, you might as well just take the time to go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you're at it, because, you know, we always got something going on. We'll see you guys around.